Hi, everybody. I'm Ginny Schuster with Zoom In with Ginny Panur series. Today, I'm really excited to have Carl Mesecher, and he is with the World Music Charts. Now, I got introduced to him by Daniel Rousseau, and it's all about the connections that you have. So today, Carl is going to talk to us about music charts, how he got the name, and he's been doing it for quite a while. He's going to give us some of his story, and then he's going to talk a little bit about some of the artists that he talks with and connects with. So this is going to be really exciting because I've always loved music. I can remember going up into the mountains thinking it's going to be peaceful. And we would turn on the music and start dancing around and having a party. So I want to hear his side of music. So thank you for being with us. Please subscribe and like and comment. Morning, Carl. Nice to have you here. I am so excited to have you on, do this interview. And I want our viewers to know that I met Carl through a mutual friend of ours. And I just love these connections that you have of people introducing you to unusual people who have unusual businesses. And it piqued my interest because the name of your business is the World Music Charts. Hi, Carl.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, let's jump in, Carl. I'm really excited about this. Get started because I can see the passion you have for music. And I think you just lit a fire for me because you reminded me as I was going through your website how much I love music. And to the point where I said, oh, I'm going to be interviewing Carl. I'm going to turn my radio on and listen to music. And this one time I had a drive out to Greeley. And man, I was listening to Tina Turner. I found a CD. People may not know what a CD is anymore.
Oh,
but
I do.
Found it. You're good. I found it in my car and I turned it up and I said, wow, it's been ages since I have rocked out in the car. I just love her music. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I was born in Peoria, Illinois. My parents grew up in that area. And my dad actually worked on the railroad and didn't go to church as a kid, but married my mom and ended up going to college in Eureka College, where Ronald Reagan went. And I was born then while he was in college. And then after college, he went to seminary in Dubuque, Iowa. So I was already a kid. So we moved when I was about a year old from Illinois. And then he went to seminary there and became a pastor. And so that's kind of what had our family going to a couple different towns and as different calls to churches. And so his first call was in South Central Nebraska, and I still have relatives, mom and sister still live in that area.
nice.
And I went to elementary school there. And it was during that time, so that would have been in the 1970s, that to me, I was introduced to music, not music history or music charts, but music. So listening to music in my parents' car on the radio, and my parents had some albums, and that was my introduction. And my older sister had 45s that I would listen to as well. So, and I can very much remember a few 45s, even to this day, that I remember playing on a little record player of her records as well. So I remember Joy to the World by Three Dog Night, I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. Those were two that definitely still stick in my memory of playing on this
No, I
little
remember
record
those.
player. So, and then definitely taking family vacations and listening to the radio and the current songs of that time in the 70s definitely sparked my interest in listening to music at that stage.
I'm kind of curious, Carl, was since your dad was a pastor, was he okay with listening to that rock and roll? Because I know my parents were into the old bandstand type stuff, and they just thought we were going to be ruined with the Beatles and the hip hop stuff that we were listening to.
I'd say he was okay with listening to it, and I think enjoyed some of it. I would say my mom even had a more interest in music, more than my dad, is probably where it came from. But they were both in the car, obviously, and the radio was on. So I can definitely even still remember listening to certain songs in the 70s, like Afternoon Delight by the
Oh,
Starland
yes.
Vocal Band, and Convoy by C.W. McCall, who actually has some Colorado roots. And um,
So
but it,
that's what started your interest in music right then.
yeah, yep, yeah.
And
So
then from there, what got you, because it's charts, that's what keeps
yeah,
coming back
yep,
to me. It's the charts. So what
yeah,
do you mean by that?
yeah.
How'd you come up
So
with the name?
yeah, I'll get back to that in a second. I'll give you, because there's we'll definitely get to that. So then, right prior to middle school, my dad took a call at a church in Eastern Colorado and
Oh,
Burlington, Colorado. And so I went to middle school and high school there and graduated from high school there. During that time is when I became in high school, became interested in the charts. So I had a friend that worked at the local radio station in the evenings, and I would go out there sometimes and read Billboard magazine. And so I started getting hooked on the charts. I bought my first chart books from a company out of Wisconsin back in the 80s. That company's been around since 1970.
wow.
And so I'd gotten my first couple chart books back then in high school as well. And then I also wrote for the high school newspaper. And so I started writing things about music and music charts and Grammys and stuff back then. I still have all those articles to this day. I've kept them. And by my senior year, I actually had talked my teacher into having an entertainment section that year too, to include and have other writers write for that section too. But I would have stuff that involved charts or Grammys or concerts and whatnot.
Oh, how fun. Oh my
So
goodness.
so then it definitely elevated at that time. And then I went to college at the University of Nebraska as a broadcasting major,
Oh,
and I was the music
right.
director for 3 years for the campus radio station. And even during part of that time, I had a countdown show on that radio station, and we used the trade publication Radio and Records, which no longer exists. That's what we kind of use as our guideline to help with our playlist then. And so I would count down the top 10 songs and radio records in every week. And I would also call a few different radio or record stores, they existed then, in the Lincoln area. And I would get their top 10 album sales every week and compile the record stores and have my own Lincoln top 10 countdown as part of my
Oh,
show.
wow.
That was the second hour for the radio, for the records, top 10 records in Lincoln.
Oh,
And
man. So, and you had to do it manually, basically,
oh
right?
yeah, so when I called them, I put a reel to reel. There was reel to reel tapes back then. I would put those on the recorder, make my phone call, and record the conversation because I couldn't write down the list
Yeah.
quick enough. And then I'd go back and listen to my list, and then I would do my compiling manually and everything as well to form the top 10 every week for that.
So on a radio show, when you're listing them, that means you would say, this is Carl and number 40, go from bottom to
Yeah,
top.
so it was
Is
called the
this.
KRNU Countdown Show, and I counted down the top 10 songs from radio records every week. So I started with 10 all the way to 1, and that was the first hour. And then
Yeah.
the second half would have been the top 10 albums in Lincoln, and I started from 10 to 1 each week. And I would throw some extras in there, like here was the #1 album in the country this week and play a song from that, or here was the #1 song this week in the country and play a song from that too as part of my show. So I kind of, the other thing that influenced me in growing up was listening to Casey Kasem American Top 40 and on the KNAB in Burlington as well, that radio station, while I was in high school. And so I kind of had my own countdown show, which was fun.
Very special. Yeah. Well, I was living in upstate New York, and the closest place was Buffalo. and our reception was horrible in this little farm town where we were. So, it would start getting staticky, and I'm going, "You're only at number 8." So I don't know how other people felt about it, but they have much better radios these days.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, one of my podcast interviews was with Andy Kim, who's from Canada. He wrote and sang Rock Me Gently, which hit #1 in Canada, United States in '74. He co-wrote the song Sugar Sugar by the Archies. And he, shared with me that much like you, so he would listen to radio stations and, in the United States as well that he could pick up and
Yeah.
hear stuff. So
I was listening to his music from on your website. So that's what I really like about it. I could scroll down and just listen. I listened to all of his, and then to get a feel for some of the others, I go, thinking I don't know who the artist is, and all of a sudden, oh yes, I know that song. Oh, I know this song.
right, yeah, definitely. So that took me to the mid to late '80s there, and then I would say I kind of followed the charts from there, and looked at my chart books and whatnot throughout the years, but was less involved at that point. But throughout the years of my adult life, I've kind of had ideas in my head that I want to do some books, but I didn't really quite know the avenue to get there. And um, in 2020, it might have been even late 2019 is when that started coming into be. I found an avenue where I could get these published and distributed and do it on my terms, at my pace, and keep it fun. And that's what I want to do. And so they're available through Amazon. I use Kindle Direct Publishing right now
Okay.
as my avenue to do that. And there are other avenues out there to do this too, but that seems to be the biggest and largest. And that's the one I learned, and that's the one I had found out about and investigated and
Yeah,
took
I've
off
heard that.
there.
Yeah, Amazon is a good place for Kindle
Yeah.
and
Yep.
publishing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it gives then me the ability where I don't have to worry about retail sales and holding an inventory of books. It's print on demand. I do have the ability to wholesale and drop ship if I want to through that avenue as well, which I have done a little bit of that and
Oh,
plan on
that's nice.
doing that if it makes sense too.
Yeah, yeah.
So the books was really the first thing that came to be, even before the website and the name of the company. The
Really?
books, yes. So I found this avenue to write my books. I'm like, I've had ideas in my head, but that's all they were, was ideas, nothing concrete, nothing on paper. But about, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, and this will show you what a music geek I guess I am, um, I made a spreadsheet, and I like playing with spreadsheets, of the year 1983. And what I did is just went through every week and put down what song was #1 in Canada, United States, United Kingdom, and Australia. And what I was interested in was the songs that were popular here, were they popular there, and vice versa. And when
Oh,
I could put that on a spreadsheet and look at it, it really showed me some of the diversity that was going on, or how different or similar, and that as well. And so I sat on that for a while and never did anything with it. Tried to think of ideas to make something out of this, but didn't. So that was kind of the first spreadsheet that I ever made to deal with my music books.
interesting. Wow.
And all my books start with a spreadsheet, and I call these the mother of all spreadsheets. So
I'm gonna
the
have to see that.
the first book I wrote was every song that hit #1 in the 1980s in those 4 charts: Canada, United States, United Kingdom, and Australia. And so I made a tab on my spreadsheet for every year and listed every song, and then how many weeks they were at #1 on a particular chart or charts, the songwriter, the artist, obviously the year, and then what if they charted on those other charts, what was the peak position of those charts as well. So a song that might have hit number one in the United States might have hit number 20 in a different one of those other charts. I would make
Right.
sure to document that on my spreadsheet as well. So then every book would start with that. So then so this was in the spring of 2020 is when I
Okay.
started this spreadsheet and kind of started writing the first book, having no idea what it was going to look like, what the flow was going to look like or look like. And I was into it a couple different times and rechanged the flow and the formula of it, because just through bouncing some ideas off some friends and stuff, made changes, and they were overhauls, and so I had to go back and change everything as well. But I'm really happy with the changes. When I did the next two books, which were number one singles in the 1970s and 60s, I kind of had my flow down and what I wanted those books to look like, and kind of the style that I'm doing now. And these are reference and cross-reference books is what they are. But
so are you saying that, like, let's back up a second here. So I'm trying to envision one of these books. So you start with the chart, but is it all of one year, like 1980, and then you write about all that? Is that how?
No. So
Or,
I didn't know how it was going to look initially, but what I ended up settling on is I write a paragraph about every song, and every paragraph is going to include the city, state, province of the artist, country of the artist,
okay.
who wrote it, what country the songwriter was from, if it was different than the artists themselves.
Oh,
If it was on an album, like a studio album, what album was it on? And how many weeks, where did it reach number one, how many weeks, and then where did it peak on these other charts too? And if they were a group that were not represented from these countries on my four charts that I'm doing, so I'll just say, for instance, like ABBA, who was big in the 70s and had some stuff in the 80s, they're from Sweden. I would also put then for them where they charted with that particular song in Sweden as well, their home country. So I did that with the artists outside of that. Then I would also put if it was a remake, a cover. So a cover is a song that has been redone. So maybe an artist had initially done that song, and now this group covered it and they hit number one with it. So I also put who originally did it, if it was a cover, and then even if it didn't chart, and then I would put any versions before that charted on those four charts, or if they were an artist outside of those countries, if I had chart data, I would include that too. And then if there were any versions after this number one song that were covered as well by other artists, I would also include that in my book. And every paragraph has that. And then some of the songs might have like, what's the inspiration of the song as well.
oh my goodness, what research you had to go through to get all that. How big
So
are the books?
these books are about 450, 500 pages.
Wow.
Yeah. So
So if it's 1980, that book is 450 pages.
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah. So I list every song alphabetically. So that book is about 525 songs that hit number one. The 70s and 80s have about 600 songs in them. So that every book's listed, every song is listed alphabetically. And then I have what I would call a compendium of chart data. So that kind of gets to, did I do things by years? So then I start making other tabs on my spreadsheets, and I'll list the songs, the year they hit, and I won't do it chronologically. I listed them by how many weeks they were at number one in that particular chart for that given year. So I'll do, Australia, 1980, 81, 82. I'll list things by a whole chapter of listing by artists that had number one songs. So a big long list, songwriters, number one songs, artists with multiple number of one songs on those 4 charts. And then I would even break it down to artists with multiple songs on each particular chart, songwriters with multiple number ones on those 4 charts. There's more data. So all this compendium of different chart data is most weeks at number 1. So I'd have like whatever weeks and all the songs that hit number 1, and I'd tell what chart it was on and there as well.
Okay, Carl, I got to ask you, have you ever heard of Caribou Ranch up in Netherlands?
Absolutely.
Did you? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, we used to camp right near there, and we had little trail bikes, and the ranch I just was reading was huge. It went from 1971 to 1985 when they had a big fire there.
Yep.
But the Beatles were there, Elton John, Waylon Jennings.
Yeah. In fact, the Music Hall of Fame for Colorado Music Hall of Fame, and they have their displays at the Red Rocks Trading Post gift shop, had an exhibit at Caribou Ranch, but I was just there a couple weeks ago because I like to go look and browse around that and read the displays and watch the videos. And the display for Caribou Ranch, there was curtains behind it, so I don't know if they're putting it somewhere or taking it out right now. And then Elton John actually has an album called Caribou Ranch named after, because that's where he recorded it.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And I've seen a documentary on the group Chicago, and they very much talk about Caribou Ranch. And they were one of the early groups at Caribou Ranch, and they would have these get-togethers with these mini concerts and stuff there too. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So
I never saw any famous people, but I was in the area of them.
Yeah. So
but apparently when they redid it, it's not as good as it was.
Okay. Yeah. After the burn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have never been there. Obviously I could go to the area, but I just haven't. I've hiked in the area. But so, and then the last chapter of my books, that chapter is called Pop Quiz. So kind of a play on words, but it's just different trivia that I mine throughout as I'm putting the books together, as well as what I put in those chapters, those last chapter. So it's a lot of fun. And so
what kinds of people are you finding buy these books?
I have no idea.
You don't get to know the analytics?
Right. No, I mean, I know how many sell, but I don't know where they buy. I do know I've sold books in the United States so far, Canada, and the United Kingdom at this point.
Okay. Okay,
but
cool.
It's available in many other countries too. So I wish I could get some in Australia. I haven't yet, but I will. So I mean, these are evergreen books and have a permanent shelf life, in my opinion. And might call for an update sometime if there's more covers being made of these songs. But the number ones aren't going to change. So that was during 2020 when I was writing that book. And because of certain situations that allowed me to work remotely and do things remotely, I was able to go hiking more that summer out here in Colorado. And I was hiking, I started dreaming. And so then the books became, okay, I can do this. Do I want to do more than this? And I started thinking about, well, maybe I have a website for this. So I have a landing spot for people to go to if they're interested in looking. I said, well, if I have this website, I think I want more than just a link to the books on this too. So I thought, well, I can, bring back this broadcasting career as well. And so I thought maybe I'll do a podcast, and I want to interview singers and songwriters that have some connection to the songs that are in my books, so they can all kind of relate together. And as I do the podcast, I'm thinking, well, it's probably a big chore and expense to include music from a copyright standpoint. So I thought, well, here's a fun workaround. I'll just have a blog on my website, and I call it The Beat, and I can embed the music videos of songs that I'm talking about, and then they're related to the books and the podcast as well. And you can see the videos of some of the things that are talked about. So it kind of brings it all together too. And there's my workaround to get the music incorporated. And I was able to do that through the website. So I have, the books I can get to, the podcast, and the the videos of the blog all from the website. The World Music Charts is the company, and the worldmusiccharts.com is the website. So that's kind of how the name of the company, back to your question, how did the name come about? And
I
the
know
name,
I like to jump ahead.
yeah, that's all right. The name came about because I wanted to make sure I had the word music charts in my domain name for the website. And so
Oh,
it just a matter of me finding something that was available that fit. And so it's long. I realized that the World Music Charts, all one word.com is the website, but it was available and I wanted to make sure I had I wanted to have music charts in my name. And so um, I came up on the World Music Charts because it's not just our charts here in the United States. It is Canada, United Kingdom, it's Australia. Those are the four I focus on the most.
okay.
Again, I'll have data from other countries when pertinent, and usually to a specific artist and that sort of thing too. So I got the domain name. To me, that's fun too, then, because when I'm researching these books, though, I'll listen to all kinds of music and videos I'm doing, and not just the songs. If I'm not, some of them I'm not familiar with myself, especially if they chart in another country and they weren't popular here. But I go back and listen to. But some of those originals and remakes I'd go listen to as well while I'm writing these books. And I think as people look at the book and read them, I do that with a lot of music books. I'll go listen to the songs as I'm reading about them, and I read a lot of music books as well. And I think they could do the same thing if they wanted to. They can use it how they want, though.
Yeah, yeah. I I realize how much I love music, and I used to I did not enjoy cleaning the house and vacuuming, because I always had to have a kid on my hip. So in order to get into it, I would turn on the music really loud, and then I could dance with the kid on my hip, and I'd be vacuuming and dusting.
Yep.
That's how I made a game of it.
So if I do a lot of walking, not in the mountains, but just on sidewalks, if whatever town or wherever I'm at, if I'm by myself, I'll actually listen to old episodes of American Top 40 with Casey Kasem as my
Oh,
entertainment
really?
there. When I hike in the mountains, I don't listen to anything because I want to hear the wildlife. I also want to look out for the wildlife too,
Right, right. Yeah.
and just enjoy nature and while I'm out there. And again, I tend to do a lot of thinking, and that's when I was hiking is when this podcast and website and company name and the blog all kind of came to be in my head. And then later in 2020, started putting that together, got the website domain name, launched it, and got my equipment to do my podcast, my mixer, my mic, and headphones, and started thinking about what do I want that to look like. And I didn't launch that till early 21 then. And I put about one or two episodes a month usually out. I mean, I'm at my schedule, and I want to keep it fun.
Yeah.
And so part of it is dictated by who I can get as an interview, when I'm doing the interviews, that sort of thing kind of dictates when I can put stuff out there as well. I try to keep every episode, though, probably around 15 minutes or give or take. Part of it's just when I listen to things from an attention span standpoint, that's probably, for the most part, makes sense. I don't want to listen to too much longer stuff. But if it isn't an interview, then I can break it up into parts too. So, you mentioned Andy Kim. There's three parts, three segments of
I
podcast.
saw that. Yeah, three
Yeah.
parts.
So I'll just break it up. And then within each episode, I have three segments just with a quick breakup of a tag or some bridge music or a tag, just to kind of break the mind a second and come back to it as well, just to hopefully keep people engaged
Right. I'm sure you
with
don't
that.
have any trouble getting songwriters and singers to come on your podcast.
It's more a matter of me just taking the time to reach out to them and then getting them. It's more my time than
Okay.
that, to find the time to do that. But I enjoy doing that. I love prepping for the conversations. I'm sure you do feel the same way
Yep.
and about yours. And I love doing the interviews and hearing their stories and just some of the neat things that come out of that, and um, of their lives, and how, how their journey took, and maybe sometimes an inspiration of, what triggered this song. And so songwriters, you can really get that out of, but even artists, just maybe they didn't write the song, but they still have a tie to these songs, and why did they want to sing that, or how did that come about that they got connected with it, or are there certain songs that inspired them, or genres or whatnot too.
Right. Oh, so that is a good question. So are there songs that they write, if they write them, is it based on their experience? Or because in the earlier days, or when I was into music, it seemed as though they kind of had a storyline. It wasn't the same words over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, early on in rock and roll, most musicians, not all, but most of them didn't write their own music. There were songwriters that wrote it. And then as time went on, some songwriters wrote their own music too. So Buddy Holly is definitely an early rock and roll musician that wrote a lot of his own material too. There were also, usually it was a lot of solo artists then back then too, but the Beatles changed a lot of that. They wrote a lot, they covered stuff, but they wrote a lot of stuff. It was a group that was hitting and stuff. Ironically, their influence was American music. And I am working on a complete Beatles discography book as well that represent all those countries that we talk about.
Yeah.
That's in the works right now too.
Do you bring in the guy Clark, who had the bandstand?
Oh, Dick Clark.
Dick Clark, yeah. Do you bring him in?
Yeah, I haven't referenced obviously a long running show, and as a kid, some of the different things that influenced me though, I had mentioned Casey Kasem American Top 40 and Billboard Magazine, definitely, but I remember watching Dick Clark American Bandstand, and I would say probably the thing that piqued my interest in other countries then was on BBC Pop of the Tops, which was a countdown show of the top songs a given week in the United Kingdom.
Oh.
And so, I mean, you can go on YouTube and find all kinds of old episodes of that too. That's probably what started getting my curiosity going. And this was probably in the 1990s then of, okay, this is popular there, what's popular here type of thing.
Got it. Okay. Well, I noticed on your website, you do have many different countries that people can click on there. So that was fascinating to me. And then I brought up, Italy. I said, oh, well, I want to travel to Italy. Maybe I'll just click on that one. And it also will translate it into English for you if you want to take that route.
Right. So, yeah. I forgot to mention that on the website. There is a page that has links to current charts, pop music charts on many different, around 30 countries or so around the world. Yes.
Yeah. So that's fun for viewers to take a look at your website for that. And also your blog, you mentioned your books, and give us some idea of where you see yourself down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep it fun. That's first and foremost. So I like doing the podcast interviews. I would like to keep doing those. Again, I want them related to my books that I'm doing because it kind of blends it all together. Then there's some uniformity and with that. But I love hearing the backstories. And then the blog, they're going to be related to the books, and definitely they're going to be related very much to the podcast and songs that are talked about in the podcast. That's a way to really tie those two things together. That's really what triggered the blog as well. I always joke with people that I have book ideas till I die. I don't know when that is. And if it's a long time from now, I've probably got that many ideas in my head just at this moment. And it takes a while to write some of these books. I mean, there's a lot of research involved, and I want to make sure they're as thorough as possible and they're as correct as possible. If there's an error, because there's a lot of data in there, I want to get that corrected and stuff too. And I'm human, so there's bound to be here and there, but I find errors in other books too. So,
well, they're not gospel, folks.
So I want to keep writing the books. I really enjoy that. I'd mentioned I'm working on a complete every song album and EP that was released in Canada, United States, United Kingdom, Australia. For the Beatles, I'm working on that book. It'll probably be very similar in pages as well. I've got quite a bit of it done. I'm still in the process of that though. I've already got some spreadsheets built for some future books at this point because they all start with a spreadsheet because of all the data as well. So I want to keep doing that, and I want to keep doing the interviews. It's fun, and what I'm doing to me has, in my opinion, a permanent shelf life. And I think the more that I can share with what I'm passionate about with others, if they enjoy it too, I'm all for that.
Well, I like the idea of getting back to music because it's got such a positivity. And when you start playing hip hop music that's got a great beat to it, in my opinion, man, that just lifts you right up.
Yeah, some songs are great because of lyrics. Some songs are great because of the music. Some songs are great because of both.
Yeah.
And I also say to each their own. There's all different types of music, and this is, pop and rock definitely is what kind of gets me excited, and the chart history, I like that, but it's not just numbers to me either. It is, but it's more than that too. There's history behind it. So the Beatles book is going to have a very similar feel to these other books, a paragraph on every song. There's about 300 songs in there. There's about 100 album and box set entries, over 24 EPs. I'll have all the track listings of the album and the EPs. On the paragraphs for the songs, I've also included, if it wasn't George Martin as the producer, who produced the song. If it wasn't recorded at EMI Studios, which is now Abbey Road Studios, I'll put what studio it was recorded in, because oftentimes there's just demos that might have been recorded at one of their houses or one of their home studios. So I'll mention that too.
Huh. I didn't know they did that. Now, isn't there is it Chicago or where it is it the Music Hall of Fame?
So Cleveland has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh,
and
okay.
and then I had mentioned I was born in Illinois, but starting last year, there is a Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame in Joliet, Illinois, in the Chicago area. And I recently interviewed the director of that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum for my podcast. And so that just happened. So that'll be fun to listen to, I think, for people as well. And just with me having some Illinois ties, and actually some of the musicians in their Hall of Fame went to the same high school and stuff as some of my parents and aunts and uncles.
Oh, how fun. Well, I have some friends from, I believe it's Peoria, and we have a place up in the mountains, and this guy was into a band, and they listen to band music all the time. I guess there's a TV station that has it as well. And he said something about them buying a brick and having a brick with their son's name on that brick, and they got to buy it. There was a certain length of time. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but I do know a lot of places that have a brick and mortar type, museums, churches and whatnot sometimes do that. Theaters do that as a fundraiser, buy a brick or a seat type of thing.
Yeah. And one last point that you make me think about was I went down to Nashville, and I went into the Johnny Cash Museum. And I'm telling you, I thought, oh, I'll just go in for a couple minutes. Well, I think it was 2 or 3 hours later. I mean, these museums of people get you going, and you can't get out of them. Maybe it's just part of liking music.
That's definitely part of it. And just trying to find some of the little gems in a museum and stuff related to that is so cool. I mean, I went to the Rock and Roll Museum Hall of Fame in Cleveland. It's been several years. It was in the 1990s the last time I was there, but probably the one thing I remember when I was there is there was a report card of John Lennon, and I'll just say he wasn't that good a student.
But here's to his defense. I will say that a lot of times those people are the ones who have a lot of common sense, and they know they're not very good, so they got to work harder to be successful in life.
Yep, and he was influenced by American music, and when he saw Elvis, he's like, "This is what I'm doing."
Yeah. And so he did. Well, Carl, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so much fun. Do you have any last words? You want to tell people how they can connect with you, or once again, tell them your website?
Yeah, go to the
connect?
website, theworldmusiccharts.com, and be happy to hear from anybody there, and we can I'm continually kind of trying to tweak the website as well to make it user friendly and whatnot as well, make the contact and stuff too. But I'm with you. Something you said earlier. It's just, music inspires and motivates, and that, I think that's the great thing about music. I'm taking a little step further and trying to find out backstories and history and chart history and stuff, which I enjoy too.
So basically, it's the family tree DNA of rock stars.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, very much. In fact, I'll kind of say this too with the Beatles book. It's going to have an additional chapter because I have the evolution of the Beatles written out in paragraph form as well, versus like a drawing of a family tree, but it brings that all in as well, how they from start to finish.
Oh, I'll look forward to that. Well, thank you, Carl. Really appreciate your time and this fun interview to hear about music and charts and where you're going with the company. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.